If you cut your finger, you might put a Band-Aid on it, right? To keep it clean, to keep it, the sides together, all those kinds of things. But does the Band-Aid actually do the healing? Your body does. Your cells actually do the healing, right?
Dr. Michelle Jorgensen, welcome to the Lindsay Elmore Show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here today.
I'm so excited to have you back. Thank you so much for coming back to the show. Congratulations on your new book, Living Well with Dr. Michelle. It's such a huge feat to create a book. And I am so grateful that you were able to send me a copy, that I was able to read it, and that our listeners are going to get to hear all about it today.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I'm glad that you're going to be able to help spread this message.
Well, let's start out by something that I think you and I both agree on, which is that, medicine is just a Band-Aid. Talk us through what this means, how you came to this conclusion, and how people can really start to embrace this message to stop using Band-Aids and get to the root cause.
This was really an interesting realization for me as well. And I came up with an analogy that I think everybody's going to understand. If you cut your finger, you might put a Band-Aid on it, right? To keep it clean, to keep it, the sides together, all those kinds of things. But does the Band-Aid actually do the healing?
No, your finger does.
Yeah, your body does. Your cells actually do the healing, right? So what happens when you're first, when the cut happens is, first of all, your immune system sends cells there that make it red, make it swollen, make it kind of pulse, because it's sending all of its immune soldiers there to clean up the mess, to fight off any bacteria, to do all this work. Then once all of that's secure, the site's secure, it says, all right, guys, now it's time to go and build. Then the skin cells come in, they start to knit themselves together so tight that they can't separate again. And the amazing thing is it all happens without us telling them what to do. Isn't that incredible? Think about that. Do you ever think about it when your finger is healing?
No. Well, you think about it if it hurts, but
Sure.
The pain is just a part of the healing process,
This is part of it. But you didn't have to tell it again what to do or how to improve. So really, when I started thinking about all that we live in, this information saturated world today, we are so overwhelmed. We are not lacking in information, right? There's podcasts on every single thing you could potentially imagine in the entire universe right now, and we often are just very confused because sometimes there's conflicting information. We hear this story and then we hear this person, and should we use this supplement or this exercise program or this diet plan? Well, I'm going to propose that they're all nothing more than Band-Aids. Because every single thing that we utilize, whether it be a food or a supplement or a diet program or an exercise program, they all are just there to support our cells in doing what they already know how to do.
Do you really think that also applies to ancient forms of medicine like Ayurveda and Chinese medicine?
100%. Now, interestingly enough, some of those ancient traditions got it a little bit more than we do, I think. They got that their job was to support the body in doing its work. So they would use things like, this is very damp, and there's too much, they would use words like that because they knew they could influence that situation, that issue. Whereas today we just say, I'm really inflamed, so I better go take a pill. We don't even think that we can influence our cell situation, but I believe they did. So yes, all medicine is just a Band-Aid. It's just there to help our cells. So instead of saying, what medicine should we use? We should be saying, what do my cells need to be well?
That's exactly the question I was going to ask you next is, What key nutrients do our cells need to stay well?
So cells need 4 things. They need supplies. So that's going to be the nutrients that you're talking about. But that's not the only thing they need. They also need support. The body actually has a garbage disposal system as well. It's called the lymphatic system, but it doesn't move itself. So we actually have to come and dump that garbage. Otherwise, it starts to back up. So cells need support. They need us to dump the garbage. They need us to do, they need us to move. They need us to do certain things. They need security. We can't just get a whole bunch of, I went to Morocco recently and came home with E. coli. Well, my cells needed some help in protecting themselves from that, So that's the security piece. And then they need signals. They need to be able to talk to one another because our body is connected top to bottom, and the cells actually communicate with one another and help each other if they can talk. So here's the hard part is oftentimes we say, well, what food should I be eating? What supplements should I be taking? But again, we're asking the wrong question. We should be asking, what do my individual cells need to be well? And that's where I went back to all of those traditional medicine things that you were talking about, back to Ayurveda, back to Chinese traditional medicine. And I said, what do they know? And how can we bring that to today? So I created an assessment that you plug your symptoms into. So you say, this is what I'm suffering from today. This is how I feel. It's actually physical as well as emotional symptoms. You plug it in, and I'll tell you right there what cells need help first. Then I tell you in the book, what do you give those cells? So let's say you test and it says it's your liver gallbladder that needs help first. So then I go and I say, okay, these are the supplies liver gallbladder needs. This is how you support it. This is how you secure it. And this is how you ensure that they're getting the correct signals.
So is the assessment just a quiz? How do people access the assessment, and kind of what types of questions does it ask?
Yep. So that's exactly it's not even as much a quiz as it's just a symptom checker. So it has lists of symptoms, and all you do is you make a check next to the thing that you might be experiencing. So let's say it says thinning hair, low energy, or impatient, and so you're just checking off any symptom that you might be experiencing now. And then because of what you've given it, your answers you've given, it tells you which cells need help first. So yes, you can access this at livingwellbook.com. It's also in the book. So it's in the beginning of chapter 10 in the book, but it's also at livingwellbook.com. If you go there, you're going to be able to access that symptoms assessment, and it's digital. So you can plug it all in, and it's going to tell you exactly what season you're in. Now you might go, season, what the heck does that mean? So all of these ancient traditions all used the seasons of the earth and the elements of the earth to describe the body and describe where we are at. They talked about, okay, your energy is actually fire, and your lubrication or being able to move is actually water. And so, they used elements of the earth. And so I've plugged back into that and said, all right, let's talk about seasons. So for example, we talked about liver gallbladder. That's spring, because spring is all about detoxing and renewing and refreshing. So you're going to find out what season you're in. If you're struggling with heart issues, you're going to be in a summer. If it's a UTI you cannot get over, you're in winter.
I love the different seasonalities, and I also love the Chinese medicine clock, where we can look at different organ systems throughout the 24 hours of the day. Because I feel like when we go with the seasons and we eat with the seasons and we really commune with nature in that way, it can help us to facilitate this healing that you're talking about, that cellular energy that we need to get the supplies in, the support that we need, get that security and the signaling between all of our cells. Now, besides the assessment, is there a way for people to figure out what season that they're in?
You can. You have to do a lot of studying. That's why I created the assessment, because I did all that studying for you. So I said, all right, if you are experiencing, sluggishness, bloating, fatigue issues, just feeling like you're stuck in life, all right, that's my liver. That's my liver. And so then what do I do? If it's the liver, then you have to go start to learn, okay, well, what do I do to help a sluggish liver? Well, I've done all that work for you. That's the beauty of the assessment. Just go take the assessment. It takes like literally 5 minutes. And then it just says, these are the cells that need help first. This is what your symptoms are telling you. Because a lot of times we consider the symptoms as the thing we're trying to fix, right? We get a headache. The headache is the problem. We go take an ibuprofen or, whatever it might be. But the symptom is actually the only way our cells have to tell us what's up. Like what's going on inside. That's the only way they have to tell us. So if we just cover up the symptom, it's like putting duct tape over the dashboard on your car. You have a check engine light on, but you're like, I'm just going to cover that up and ignore it. Well, it didn't go away. You just cover up the symptom, which is, again, your cell's only way of telling you what's happening. So it's important to pay attention to the symptom, but then even more important to interpret what they're saying. What are your cells saying to you?
Yeah, it's that same like functional medicine image of mopping up the water instead of turning off the faucet that's overflowing. It's like we're trying to work so far downstream when we could be working upstream to really give our cells exactly what they need to heal. Now, you mentioned a moment ago confusion. And I feel like there is so much confusion out there. There's so many trends, so many fads. And one of the ways that fads come into the consumer awareness is through the diet. And so, people get very dogmatic about their diet. We've got everything from, the Liver King to our paleo peeps to the people that are eating vegan, people that go on juice cleanses, the crazy breatharians that go days on end with just breathing. How do you help people get clarity through all the confusion?
So what I love to do is just to take it down to the very basic building blocks. So for example, inside of each cell, we have something called mitochondria. And a lot of people have heard that word mitochondria, but they might not realize that those are actually the power generators in each cell. And some cells have hundreds, if not thousands of them. Like our heart cells have thousands of mitochondria inside of them because they require a lot of energy to run. So when we start looking at diet, what I'll always ask is I'll say, okay, what do cells need for energy? Because we're eating for fuel, correct? We're eating for energy. That's why we're doing that. Or perhaps there's a medicinal something that we're eating and then that might correct a problem, but we're usually eating for fuel. So I explain, well, how do the mitochondria actually make energy? What do they do? How do they do it? Well, they take a molecule of fuel and the preferred fuel source is actually carbohydrate. And protein, which is the darling of the nutrition world right now, that everybody should be eating a lot of protein, it is the last choice that the body will use for energy. It needs carbohydrates if you're looking for energy. Now, if you're looking for muscle growth, if you're looking to regulate some of your metabolic systems, protein's phenomenal for that. Like there's a ton of benefit from protein, but it's not for energy. So what I really try to do is say, okay, no, let's just talk about what do you need right now? Instead of there being a one-size-fits-all program, because there is no such thing. There is no such thing. And all of those things you listed, except for maybe the breatharian one, but maybe even that's useful at a times or two. I think all of them are useful at times, but they're all therapeutic modalities. They're not one-size-fits-all. Everybody should do this for the rest of their life kind of thing, because you should not eat the same way for the rest of your life. I should not eat the same way for the rest of my life, because our bodies cycle through seasons, not just the seasons of the earth. Like right now, it's summertime outside where I live. I actually am in a winter right now. My body personally is in a winter. My kidneys, I could feel it. They're sore, like I'm struggling with a little bit of like a UTI. Should I just go and eat? In fact, interestingly enough, I found out with some of what I'm struggling with, purines are found largely in red meats. So if I just decided to follow this paleo or keto trend, it would actually make what I have going on worse.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so important that we slow down and say, what are my symptoms telling me? And what do they need right now that I can give them? And it may be one of those things you listed, but you've got to figure out what your cells need right now before you just jump into any of them.
Well, if we're talking about our symptoms being signals and being communication and messengers to us, let's say somebody maybe has tender breasts or maybe has a little bit of heart palpitations, knowing what to do with that information is also confusing. It's one thing to even have the wherewithal to pause and listen to your body. But then, like you just mentioned, my kidneys are a little bit sore. Well, what does somebody do with that information once they've got it?
Yep. So another thing that I have in the book is called a season snapshot. And what it is you get to look at everything all together in one literal picture. That's why I call it a snapshot. And so it will say on there, kidneys. Like, I can tell. I'm just, they're a little tender. Like something's going on. I'll turn back 2 chapters to the winter season and I'll say, oh, these are the supplies I need. I need dark foods. Okay, it says I should need blueberries, blackberries, black sesame seeds. Okay, great. That's what I'm going to load up on. And you know what's fascinating about this? Because I've been doing it for myself. It works. It's crazy. Like as soon as I start eating that way and eating those foods and exercising the way that a winter needs, and a winter needs a ton of hydration, as soon as I start doing it, pain's gone. Like the symptom turns off. I'm like, this is literal magic. Why do we not know this? Because we don't know it. So that's really why I've tried to simplify it. So you come with any symptom you have, you look at the symptom snapshot and it'll go, boom, you are in this season. Like you have heart palpitations, you're in summer. Okay, what should you be doing? Cucumbers. Watermelon. Should not do anything that's going to heat you up right now. Everything that's cooling down for you. And all of a sudden, what you're going to find is those heart palpitations They start slowing down. It's just giving your cells what they're telling you they need.
Mm-hmm. It reminds me of a simplified, more accessible version of Paul Pitchford's classic book, Healing with Whole Foods, which is a phenomenal book. But you're talking 500 pages of Chinese medicine that just it's too much to take in. But it's a very similar concept of taking the seasons, the symptoms, and the foods and exercises and behaviors that help to mitigate the symptoms, to help the cells to heal, so that you can really get into contact with nature and the earth. And you talk about like the literal earth itself as being one of the most powerful ways that we can heal. Now, most people, they're all about like, where do I get my processed organic food and where do I get my grounding mat? But what do you think the value of going outside is for our health?
It's enormous. And I talk in the book about how, if you think about how long people actually lived on the earth in human history, pretty much until about the last 100 years, right? So for centuries, people have been working on the earth, sleeping on the earth, walking on the earth. Our bodies actually evolved with this medicine, this earth's medicine, I call it vitamin G, vitamin grounding, with literally being able to connect with the earth, which is an enormous source of electrons, which are the currency of electricity in your body, the currency of energy in your body. Our bodies evolved with that constant connection, constant source. Can you imagine like how shocking it might have been to all of our cells to go, wait a minute, like I usually like charge up every single morning when you walk outside of your tent or whatever it is. Now we never touch the earth. So our bodies are really starving for this literal electricity, electrons charged, because we're just not giving it to them very often.
Yeah, it's too bad. And especially, grounding and being out there barefooted is one thing, but dang, how easy is it just to go outside first thing in the morning? I mean, it is the easiest thing to just wake up and go outside and just allow that circadian rhythm to get you going and get you woken up. Now, your background is actually as a dentist. And so we're going to transition and talk a little bit more about dentistry. But I want to give a shout out to your book, Living Well with Dr. Michelle, a comprehensive handbook for optimal health and unlimited energy. Listeners, if you would like to dive deep into science and simplicity of cellular healing, this is the book for you. You're going to learn how, on the cellular level, we can activate the body's natural repair mechanisms, integrate time-tested natural wisdom with our modern science, how we can harness elemental forces of the earth like fire, earth, plants, water, and air to nourish our cells. And you're going to get practical tools, the assessment that we talked about, and more than 30 healing recipes that can help you with everyday vitality. Now, let's talk about dentistry, because I think most people are like, a dentist is somebody who fills a cavity, straightens my teeth, and does root canals. And you talk about how the mouth is a gateway. And I would also posit the mouth is not only a gateway to our health, it is a reflection of our total body health. So what is your sort of philosophy about dentistry?
Well, it's really fascinating because we get people now from all over the world that have struggled with health. They have chronic illness. They have been to doctor after doctor after doctor. And eventually, somewhere along the path, they either saw a podcast or a friend, or sometimes some enlightened doctors will say, we are just not moving the needle on what's going on here. I wonder if there's an answer in your mouth. So they come and we are usually the end of the line for them. They've been everywhere and they've tried everything. And now they come, and guess what I find? I find hidden infections. I find metals that are interfering with basically the whole energy system in the body. And I find people who are not sleeping at all because they can't get enough air. And those three things are so foundational to health that usually within about 15 minutes of time, we've answered why they're not getting better. And
Mm.
I just would love to be able to see people first. I'm like,
Yes.
just come to the dentist first. I'm not going to save you going to all those different doctors. Why? Because those three things. There's so many hidden infections with infected root canals that you can't feel because the tooth's dead. So reinfected root canals. This is after you've had the root canal. This is down the road. Years later, there's infection spreading there. You can't feel it. Metals, both mercury fillings as well as metal dental implants, and then airway issues. Just not enough room to breathe because nutritionally our mouths aren't big enough anymore. There's just no room in here. There's ways we can correct it. Those three things are so crucial for overall health because that's immune system, that's electrical system, and that's oxygen, which is essential for every single cell to work properly. Without those three things, you won't be well. You can't be well, period. And dentistry has a huge impact on all of those things. Not only that, but when I look in your mouth and I see major problems, I know that you're not healthy everywhere else too. And I can't see your bones. I can't see inside your stomach. I can't see those things, but we can see your mouth. And boy, I can see so many things reflected in the mouth that are going on elsewhere.
I feel like a lot of people understand the risks of mercury fillings, but I don't think it's as well known the risks of root canals.
Yep.
Talk to us about why getting root canals can be so harmful.
So it's all about anatomy. Inside of each tooth, there's a main root canal. That's why it's called a root canal. It's a main nerve channel inside of each tooth. It houses the nerve and the blood vessels. So if you have a deep cavity, or if you have a broken tooth and that nerve center, that center portion of the tooth is exposed, or the bacteria have made it all the way that deep, then that nerve, it gets inflamed and it hurts. First of all, that's that hurting. That's that, oh my gosh, my tooth hurts so bad, or it's super sensitive. It's because that nerve's inflamed. And eventually, if it gets infected, it will actually die. So what happens when they do a root canal is they open up that nerve chamber, they remove the nerve, they remove the blood vessels, clean it up, disinfect it with bleach, actually. It's what's used still today, and then fill it up with this plasticky material. The idea of it is awesome. Like, I love the idea of it because you get to keep your tooth. You get to keep chewing and smiling. I mean, it's so awesome. The problem is there's not just that main nerve channel. There's little side channels that go off of that main channel that are feeder channels. If you think about it, when you tap on your tooth, you feel it. How do you feel it? Well, because there's little nerve extensions, little arms of these nerves that go all the way out to the outside of the tooth. Same with minerals and everything else, nutrition. How does it get all the way out to the tooth? It's through those little feeder channels. And every dentist knows about them. Like, we learned about this in first year of dental school. They're called dental tubules. So this isn't something I'm making up. There's literally a mile inside of every tooth. Well, the problem is when a root canal is done, those little canals are too small to clean and they're too small to fill. So you always end up entombing things because now you've removed the blood supply, you've removed everything, you've filled up with plastic, but now there's dead stuff still out in those little feeder channels. Anytime there's dead stuff left in the body, it will attract bacteria, no matter what.
Yeah.
So bacteria go and find the dead stuff. They start to congregate. They start to have parties. They start to leave all of their toxins that inflame the tissue. They literally eat away the jawbone in the area, but you don't feel it because the nerve is gone. But every time you bite, it's like stepping on a blister. That's forcing all that infection throughout the bloodstream. So your immune system has to deal with this 24/7. And when your immune system is dealing with something like this that never goes away, it's less capable of dealing with other things. And that's where the problem comes. Because if your immune system is distracted and it can't deal with other things, we often see autoimmune disease happening because the body doesn't know what it's fighting anymore. It's so tired out. Or we see things like cancer where the body should have dealt with those weird aberrant cells, but it can't because it's dealing with this instead all the time. We see so many chronic diseases related to these infected teeth, and nobody even knows they're there because they don't hurt and we don't see them on regular dental x-rays.
So talk to us about how a biological dentist, this newfangled dentistry practice that people are getting into to help people avoid the poisonous mercuries and these dangerous root canals. If I've got a tooth that's infected, that is painful, what am I going to do other than a root canal?
So 2 choices. Number 1, first of all, we have to decide, is it still alive? So if it's sensitive, like if you drink cold water and you go, that thing is sensitive, but it goes away and you can chew on it okay, then most likely your tooth's still alive. Then the cavity's getting deep, but it's not already to the nerve and it's not already infected. If that's the case, what we do is we actually remove the cavity down to the deepest layer, but we don't uncover the nerve. We leave it still covered. We treat that deepest layer with ozone. Ozone kills any bacteria. So it kills everything on contact, and then we fill right over top of it. So in that situation, we keep the tooth alive. It may be sensitive for a month or so, and then it's going to slowly start to repair from the inside out. So the tooth stays alive and you don't do anything differently other than just fill it. If the tooth is already dead, so if you've got a swollen cheek, if it's waking you up at night, if it hurts and it's not going away, most likely that tooth's already dead. In that situation, we remove and replace the tooth. And I know nobody likes to hear that. And as a dentist, I was taught that that's a failure. Like if I can't save a tooth, then I have failed you. And that was really my approach for so many years. I would say, you know what, we're going to keep a tooth at any cost. And now I'll say, you know what, we're going to keep your health at any cost, even if it means removing and replacing a tooth, because I can remove and replace your teeth all day long, but I can't remove and replace your health. So it's too important.
All right, let's talk to parents. Kids are not great about brushing their teeth. They eat a ton of sugar, and parents don't always have control over it. What can parents do differently beyond just brushing and flossing that can help their kids to have healthier mouths?
So I say minerals in, minerals out. So you need to have minerals from the outside, which is going to be hydroxyapatite, not fluoride. Fluoride does strengthen teeth, but it leads to all sorts of growth and development issues in children. So never fluoride in children, hydroxyapatite instead. That's the minerals on the outside. You can find toothpaste, tooth powder. I've got a great kids tooth powder, great kids mouthwash that has hydroxyapatite, and then minerals in, which is going to be what I call tooth and bone formula. And then vitamin D3, K2. It's minerals and vitamin D3 and K2. What it does is it ensures that even if nutritional issues are happening, because I know kids don't eat everything you feed them, they're going to get it through this yummy strawberry tasting pill. They're going to chew up that's the minerals that they need. As long as you can get the minerals on the outside of the teeth, minerals on the inside of the body, typically we can prevent tooth decay.
I love that. So listeners, Living Well with Dr. Michelle is going to cover topics from nutrition to detox to energy flow to lifestyle habits. This book is going to empower you to take an active and informed role in your healing journey. Whether you've got chronic symptoms or simply crave more vitality, Dr. Michelle is going to provide you with a framework, tools, and encouragement to help your cells and your life to thrive. Pick up a copy of Living Well with Dr. Michelle, a comprehensive handbook for optimal health and unlimited energy anywhere that you pick up books. Dr. Michelle Jorgensen, thank you so much for coming in and being a guest on the Lindsay Elmore Show.
Thank you.